On the most important day of my career, I had to choose. Keep being who everyone expected me to be, or finally become who I really was. I chose, and that was the moment he took my hand.
The ice cracked before she even finished the spin. It was not loud, but it was enough for any sensible person to leave that spot. But Hanna did not leave. She adjusted her body weight, let the blade glide in a wide curve, and completed the movement as if the lake were a stage and not a thin surface separating winter from dark water. The wind cut across her face, bringing the metallic scent of the cold. The sky was already beginning to darken at the edges of the city, and the first streetlight glows appeared in the distance, small, almost surreal. Out there in the middle there was only the creaking of the ice and the rhythmic sound of her own breathing. She always came back. It did not matter if it was Monday, Saturday, or a holiday, whether school had been exhausting or if the electricity bill had arrived higher than it should have been. The lake was 10 blocks from her house, but it felt like another world. There, no one asked about the future, grades, or money. There, her body answered for her. Hanna gained speed, drawing a wide figure 8 on the ice. The skates already had marks of use. The lace on the left foot was a different color, but the blade still obeyed. She jumped without warning, spun in the air, and landed lightly. The impact was dry, precise. Another crack appeared beneath the surface. She knew that sound. The lake spoke. Sometimes it warned, sometimes it tested. She continued. When she glided toward the shore, she noticed a silhouette standing near the trees. A woman, wearing a dark coat with a firm posture, had been motionless long enough to truly be watching. Hanna reduced her speed and stopped a few yards away. The woman did not seem lost or curious. She seemed to be evaluating. "Do you train here alone?" she asked without raising her voice. Hanna nodded. "For how long?" "Since I was little." The woman tilted her head, analyzing like someone measuring the distance between steps. "Without a coach?" "Without one." The wind lifted a loose strap of her coat, but her posture did not change. "You know the jump you just did is not the kind of thing someone learns by watching videos on the internet." Hanna looked at the lake, then at her own skates. She had never thought of what she did as something special. It was just what her body knew how to do when it had space. "I just do it," she replied. The woman took 2 steps closer. "My name is Virginia Whitmore." The last name meant nothing to Hanna at that moment. What caught her attention was the way she said the next part without any drama. "I was a world champion." The wind seemed to die down a little. Hanna did not answer. She only watched. Virginia continued. "You have natural balance, spin timing, and landing control. That is not taught from scratch. That is found." Hanna furrowed her brow slightly. "And what does that change?" Virginia studied her face for a longer moment, as if testing whether it was worth going further. "It changes the fact that you should not be skating on a lake without lighting and without a coach." The sentence hung between them, firm, without exaggeration. Hanna took off her glove, rubbed her hands to warm them, and let out a short breath. "It is what I have." Virginia observed the mark of the worn lace, the re-sewn stitching of the coat, the practical way the girl balanced herself even while standing still. Her mind was already a few steps ahead. And what if it was not just what you had? Hanna looked up, suspicious. Virginia explained that she worked with skating, that she had a rink, that she knew coaches, competitions, paths. She did not promise fame or medals. She spoke of training, discipline, routine, schedules, rules. She spoke like someone who had already lived through all of it. Hanna listened without interrupting. The wind passed through the trees, making a low, continuous sound. "And why would you do this for me?" she asked. Virginia answered bluntly. "Because wasted talent bothers me." It wasn't kind. It was direct. Hanna remained silent for a few seconds, weighing the proposal. The idea of leaving that place felt too big to fit into her own life. "I would have to talk to my mother," she said. Virginia nodded. "Of course." Before leaving, she added, "I will be here tomorrow at this same time." And she left without looking back. Hanna watched until the silhouette disappeared among the trees. When she went back to the ice, she did not skate the same way. Every movement seemed heavy with another possibility. That night, the house smelled of warmed soup and cheap dish soap. Her mother was sitting at the table with a glass of peach iced tea and an expression that was tired but attentive. Hanna told her everything. She did not exaggerate. She did not embellish. She just told her what happened. Her mother listened until the end. Then she asked about practical details, schedules, distance, cost. She did not ask about dreams. She asked about how it would work. It was her way of protecting. The next day, Virginia returned and talked to both of them. She explained the conditions, the routine, the intense training sessions. She said she would help at the start, that there were paths for scholarships, that it would not be easy. None of it sounded magical. It sounded possible. The change began slowly. First came the trial practices, then the fixed schedules, and then the feeling that her life no longer fit into her old routine. The indoor rink smelled of clean ice and the sound of blades cutting the surface. Hanna found it strange at first. The space was large, but there were rules. There were markings, corrections, repetition. Virginia watched everything. At the beginning, she corrected posture, arms, and entry timing. She spoke little, but every sentence came with precision. Hanna absorbed it quickly. It was there that she met Ryan, Virginia's son. He arrived late on the first day with a large iced latte in his hand, and the expression of someone who had not chosen to be there. Tall, with a posture that was far too relaxed, and a gaze that evaluated without hiding it. Virginia introduced the two of them in a practical manner. "You will be training together." Ryan did not seem impressed. He only nodded and said a short, "Okay," as if it were just another chore. On the ice, he was good. He had strength, stability, and presence. But there was something in the way he addressed her, always measuring, always expecting her to keep up with his pace. Nothing explicit, just a slight discomfort that she did not yet know how to name. The training sessions became more frequent. The routine tightened. School, the rink, home. Sometimes a quick milkshake bought on the way. Sometimes a cold tea shared on the bleachers while mentally reviewing steps. Virginia demanded precision. Ryan demanded speed. Hanna delivered both. The first sign that something was unbalanced came on an afternoon when she missed a double landing. It was not serious. She recovered quickly, but Ryan stopped too close and said in a low, firm voice, "If you fall like that in competition, we lose points. Pay attention." It was not a shout, it was worse. It was the feeling of being evaluated as a piece of a larger plan. Virginia did not interfere. She only watched. Hanna nodded and repeated the movement until she got right. That night, while mentally reviewing the sequence, she realized she no longer thought about the lake. She thought about the competition Virginia had mentioned, a local qualifier, small but official. Months passed. Her body changed, becoming stronger, more precise. Her routine changed too. Her mother began to see practical results, organized schedules, transportation support, small assistances that made the promise concrete. When the competition arrived, the arena smelled of fresh ice and collective nerves. Hanna felt the weight of the music begin, and everything around her organized itself just as it had at the lake, only on a larger scale. She jumped, she spun, she landed. Every movement clicked into place. When she finished, there was no emotional explosion, only the certainty that she had done her best. The results came out minutes later. She won first place. Virginia smiled for the first time. Ryan tapped his blade on the ice in short approval. Her mother hugged her tightly. Everything felt like victory. But while holding the simple medal, Hanna noticed something new in Virginia's gaze. It was not satisfaction. It was calculation. And for the first time, the achievement did not feel like just a beginning. It felt like a commitment. And without realizing it, in that instant, she was no longer skating just for freedom. Now, there was something to lose. The first warning did not come as a shout or a shove. It came as a compliment that felt like a prize but tasted like a command. "You won because I put you in the right place," Virginia said in the gym parking lot on the day Hanna returned home with the simple medal clinking against her coat. The air was cold, the sky gray, and her mother held a cup of hot chocolate bought from a kiosk, trying to smile with the care of someone who does not want to ruin a rare moment. Virginia did not smile. She fitted pieces together. Hanna tucked the medal into her pocket so as not to lose it. The victory had been real, and so was what came along with it. On the following Monday, before the sun appeared, Virginia was already at the rink, standing near the ice entrance with a clear cup filled with black coffee. She looked at her watch, looked at Hanna, and said only, "From today on, there is no such thing as being late. Not for snow, not for anything." Hanna nodded and tied her skates with frozen fingers, feeling her heart work at a rhythm that had nothing to do with fear of the jump. It was something else. It was the certainty that there was now a price for every minute. In the bleachers, her mother held a bottle of orange juice and a sandwich wrapped in a napkin, like someone who wants to maintain a normal life, while normal life slips away. She did not complain. She did not question. She only observed with that look of someone who calculates from within, adding up hours, the commute, exhaustion, and deciding it was worth it. Virginia began to change Hannah's world with small and repeated words. Higher, cleaner, again, no, again. The ice responded with the sound of blades scratching, and that noise became the soundtrack of the new routine. What was once an escape became an obligation. What was once freedom became a goal. Ryan was also there, almost always with a cold drink in his hand. Sometimes it was a strawberry refresher from Starbucks, sometimes a black tea with lemon, sometimes an energy drink can that he snapped open as if he were opening his own patience. He entered the ice as if the ice owed him space. He skated well, no one denied that. He had strength in his spins and a presence that commanded attention. Only that presence, Hanna learned early on, was not always a good thing. Virginia put the two of them in pairs without asking for an opinion. "You need someone with stability." She said this as if Hanna were a project and not a person, and he needs someone with talent who makes the set shine. Ryan listened and smiled sideways, briefly, as if he had just won something. In the first pair practice, Hanna almost fell during the transition of a lift. It was not her fault, nor his. It was the normal kind of mistake for those who are learning to move as two. Ryan held on tight, prevented the fall, and for a second she thought that would be a partnership. His hand squeezed with a silent success. It did not truly hurt, but it left a mark, a direct pressure on the wrist as if he were teaching a secret rule. When she looked, he was not worried. He was irritated. "You froze," he said, without raising his voice, but with the sentence cut in just the right way to hurt. "Did you freeze on purpose?" Hanna opened her mouth to respond, but Virginia spoke first. "No talking. Do it again." That was how the dynamic began. She made a mistake. He interpreted it as a moral failure. Virginia treated it as a defect to be crushed. And the ice, indifferent, merely received the blades and returned the echo. At home, Hanna tried to keep the same face. Her mother would ask if she wanted a milkshake from the drive-thru on the way, like someone offering a sweet truce. Hanna accepted sometimes, the cold cup in her hands, the smell of vanilla trying to cover the smell of ice in effort. She said it was good, and everything is fine with the same naturalness with which she tied her laces. She did not want to worry her, and mainly she did not want to run the risk of losing that, because now there was money involved, not in the sense of luxury, but in the sense of relief. Virginia arranged transportation on some days. She obtained fee waivers for local competitions. She spoke to people Hanna had never seen, and suddenly doors opened. Her mother, who had always lived with doors closed in her face, began to believe that woman was the safest opportunity in the world. Virginia knew this, and she used it. On a Tuesday in February, when Hanna arrived exhausted and her knee complained from the inside out, Virginia did not ask how she was. She pointed to the ice and said, "If you want to be in the Olympic Games, your body does not have an opinion." Ryan heard it and repeated it later with sarcasm. "Your body does not have an opinion. I liked that. I am going to use it." Hanna pretended she did not hear, but the phrase stayed stuck. Worse than the cold. The practices began to multiply. In the morning and in the late afternoon then, some Sundays as well. Virginia called it commitment. Her mother called it a dream. Hanna began to call it routine, because giving a beautiful name to it made her throat close up. The isolation came without an announcement. Her friends stopped calling when she said "I cannot" for the fourth time. An invitation to go to the movies became another day. Then it ceased to exist. Hanna ate a protein bar. In the passenger seat while the city passed by the window, answered messages with 2 words, and left others without a response, because her head was already trapped in the count of the elements and the time of the next practice. The phone vibrated less. The world was becoming the size of the ice. Her conversations began to fit into short intervals, on cold bleacher benches, in quick sips of iced tea and in cups of iced coffee that she did not even finish. Even her mother started asking less how was it and more do you want me to leave a meal prep container ready, as if the whole house had accepted that life now revolved around blades, music, and scoring. Ryan, on the other hand, had an entire world, a world that Hanna saw only from the outside. A good car, new clothes, quick trips, conversations on the phone about things she did not understand. And within that world, he had a habit that started discreetly and then became a constant presence: the smell. In the beginning, it was sweet, artificial, like a drink mixed in a large cup. Then it grew stronger, more acidic. Sometimes when he came close to adjust a grip, his breath came heavy with something that was not mint or gum. Hanna learned to breathe to the side, not out of disgust but for survival. Virginia noticed, of course. Virginia noticed everything. Only when she noticed, she did what she always did. She transformed it into a weapon against Hanna. If he is unstable today, you compensate, she would say, as if it were normal for an unstable person to be supported by another. You are the reliable part. Hanna swallowed the sentence and went to the ice. The abuses in practice took shape in small and repeated details. Ryan never needed to shout. He only needed to choose the right words. You are slow. You are heavy. You are getting in the way. You are thinking too much. Each phrase came as if it were a technical observation, but it carried contempt. And Virginia reinforced it with corrections that were not corrections. They were messages. Do not make an offended face. Do not argue. Do not react. Learn to be professional. Professional, Hanna discovered, meant not being a person. On a Saturday, during the repetition of a sequence of lifts, Ryan missed the entry. His body lost its center for an instant, and Hanna tried to adjust so as not to fall. She saved them both. When they came down, Ryan let go of her hand with force and said, "You got in my way." Hanna stood still for an instant, trying to process what she had just heard. She had avoided a nasty fall. Even so, the accusation came as a punishment for having existed. Virginia came closer and spoke in a low tone, taking care not to attract attention. You need to ensure that he never looks weak. Hanna stood looking at her, trying to understand the logic. Virginia continued coldly, "He is the name. You are the function." And there Hanna realized a dangerous thing. The victory at the start had created a hierarchy, and she was at the bottom. On the following Monday, Kim appeared at the rink with a backpack and a green juice that she drank while making a face, as if she were trying to be healthy against her own will. Kim was Hanna's sister, but she did not seem like a sister in the common sense. She seemed like the version of Hanna that would have existed if life had given her space to play and to make mistakes. She was direct, sharp, spoke fast, and had a radar for things going wrong. She spent a few minutes observing from the top of the bleachers, without commenting, without making a scene, just watching. When Hanna came off the ice to change her skates, Kim went down and handed her a cup of cold lemonade. "You have a mark here," Kim said, pointing to the wrist, where Ryan's grip had left a red line. Hanna pulled her sleeve down. "It is from practice." Kim tilted her head. "Practice does not leave finger marks." Hanna tried to laugh, but nothing convincing came out. She diverted the subject. "Why did you come?" Kim looked at Virginia, then at Ryan, evaluating the entire scene. "I came because you stopped responding. And when you stop responding, it is never for a good reason." Hanna grew tense. "Kim, I am not going to make a drama," Kim cut in as if she already knew what Hanna would say. "I am just going to watch. And you are not going to send me away." Hanna wanted to say that everything was under control, that it was the price. She wanted to say anything that would close the subject. Instead, she only nodded, because deep down, having Kim there was like opening a window in a stuffy room. Only a window also lets the cold in. In the following months, Ryan began to vary in mood like someone changing songs in a car. On some days, he was almost bearable, even funny, dropping sarcastic comments about other pairs, about judges, about the chosen music. On other days, he arrived with eyes glazed from sleep and irritation, and everything Hanna did seemed wrong by definition. And Virginia, instead of stabilizing things, fed into it. He needs to feel that he is in charge. She said this one afternoon while Hanna changed her skates, her hands trembling from exhaustion. A man like that only delivers when he feels control. Hanna swallowed hard. The sentence did not match the sport, the technique, the figure skating. It did not match anything. It only matched a life that Hanna had not asked to live. Her body began to complain in different places. Calf, lower back, shoulder. She treated it with ice, stretching, compresses, and more practice. The sound of a notification on her phone turned into the sound of an alarm in her head. Time, rink, duty, rink again. Her mother bought ready-made smoothies at the market and left them in the refrigerator, as if a cup of blended fruit could replace rest. And Hanna drank them, because it was what she had. The first big step came at the end of spring, at a larger regional competition. The gym had flags, photographers, and people who noted down names on clipboards. Virginia walked down the hallway with the confidence of the owner of the place. Ryan seemed too excited. The smell on his breath was stronger. He masked it with gum, but he did not hide it. Before entering the ice, he came close to Hanna's ear and said, "Today, you are not going to improvise. You are going to do everything exactly the way I tell you." The sentence had the tone of a joke to anyone listening from afar. Up close, it held a threat. Hanna nodded, because arguing there meant exploding inside and making a mistake on the ice. She needed to get it right. She needed to win. She needed to prove that it was worth it. When the music began, the world shrank to the ice, the blades, and the count. Ryan held her hand, pulling her into the entrance of a spin, and for a second she felt that old impulse to recoil. She did not recoil. She delivered the performance as if her body were made of metal, and her mind were an on and off switch. It was flawless. The victory came with applause, flashes, and Virginia saying "I knew it" as if she had predicted the future. Her mother nearly jumped in the bleachers. Kim clapped more slowly, looking at the details, not at the medal. In the car on the way back, Ryan opened an energy drink, drank half of it at once, and said, "See? When you obey, it works." Virginia, in the front seat, did not contest him. She only added, "Discipline yields results." Hanna looked out the window, the city passing by like a movie. Her chest tightened again, but now it was because of a clear realization. They called discipline what was actually control. The summer arrived, bringing heat and closed rinks with air conditioning that was far too strong. Virginia adjusted the routine to stay inside the arena. Longer practices, less conversation, more demands. Hanna's mother began working more, hours to keep up with the indirect costs, and Virginia used this as a reminder. "She is sacrificing herself," Virginia would say, while Hanna drank a cold refresher trying to ward off the dizziness. "You are not going to waste that with attitude." Attitude meant disagreeing. It meant existing with a will of her own. On a Wednesday in July, Ryan appeared with a water bottle and an expression that was too light, as if he were in a great mood. He skated hard, hit every mark, and at the end of the practice, he pulled Hanna close without aggression, almost like an endearment. Only his gaze was not one of affection. "You are getting really good," he said. "Do not ruin it." Hanna kept her face neutral. "I am not going to ruin it." Ryan smiled. "Good, because I am not either." The sentence seemed meaningless, until he added quietly, "You remember who pulled you out of that lake?" Hanna stood motionless for an instant, her blood rising fast. The memory of the lake was hers. It was intimate. It was not an argument. It was not a weapon. Ryan turned it into a weapon. She wanted to respond. She wanted to say that no one pulled her from anywhere. She walked to Virginia by her own decision. She practiced. She won. Only the second she formulated the answer, Virginia appeared out of nowhere, as always. "The break is over," Virginia said. Again. Hanna returned to the ice with the sentence stuck in her throat, and she realized something that left her more alert than any crack in the ice on the lake. Ryan and Virginia were playing a silent game, and she was the board. It was also during that period that Daniel's story began to weave together on the other side of the world, without Hanna knowing. Daniel Noguera woke up before dawn in a European city that smelled of warm bread and clean ice. The apartment was small, the walls were thin, and the heater made noise as if complaining about having to work. He drank a quick iced coffee, Then he went down on foot with a backpack on his back, breathing in the damp morning air, mentally repeating the sequences like a prayer. The athletic scholarship had been his salvation and his condemnation. It saved him because it took him out of a cycle of lack of opportunity. It condemned him because it pulled him away from his family. The guilt made no noise, but it occupied space. Sometimes it came in the middle of a spin, like a flash of an image. His mother counting coins, his father pretending he was not worried. The farewell at the airport with a short hug so as not to fall apart. He had promised to return with something that justified the distance. The ice was the place where he had control. Outside of it, everything felt pending. Daniel trained in individual figure skating with a focus on precision and strength. He did not have the kind of talent that appears ready-made. He had the kind of talent that is built with repetition, pain, and choice. In the middle of practice, when his body asked for rest, he remembered the reason. It was not fame. It was destiny rewritten. On a Friday in August, he received confirmation that he was among the top names on the circuit for the Olympic season. He was informed by a message on his phone, and he stood looking at the screen while holding a bottle of an isotonic drink, while his heart beat steadily. The chance was real, and along with it came the weight. Now it was not enough to be good. He needed to be flawless. In the same week, Hanna repeated a sequence of steps until her feet tingled. Because Virginia said that the Olympic team did not forgive weakness, Ryan would miss some entries on purpose and blame Hanna, as if that kept her in her place. Kim watched and took mental notes. Every gesture, every phrase, every ill-timed squeeze, like someone building a dossier for the right moment. Autumn arrived again and the cold returned to occupy the streets. Hanna passed near the lake once on her way and did not stop. She looked from afar, saw the surface beginning to freeze, and felt a strange longing for the time when the ice was only hers. She did not stop. She had practice. Virginia scheduled a meeting on a Monday night. The table was organized as if it were a job interview. She looked at Hanna as if she were looking at a contract. "The time has come for the national qualifiers," she said. "If you make it in, the Olympic season truly begins." Ryan crossed his arms and smiled, as if it were already his. Virginia continued, "From now on, there is no life outside of this. You will go to sleep early. You will eat the way I tell you. You will train as I command. Your body will respond. Your head will obey." Kim was leaning against the wall, arms crossed, listening to everything. When Virginia said obey, Kim arched an eyebrow, as if that word had come out wrong on purpose. Hannah's mother looked at her daughter, waiting for any sign of doubt. Hanna gave none. Not because doubt did not exist, because she knew that if she gave a sign, Virginia would step on it. "I will do it," Hanna said. Ryan let out a sigh of satisfaction. Virginia nodded once. "Good. Then let us organize the trip." Trip. The word fell in the air with a different weight. It was no longer about the local rink. It was about entering a larger circuit. It was about becoming visible. It was about placing an entire life under the spotlight. And Hanna realized, with a clarity that left her mouth dry, that the control Virginia and Ryan held was not a small problem she could endure until the medal. It was growing with the plan. It was becoming more sophisticated, more closed off. Kim approached the table and picked up her cup of iced tea, drinking slowly, like someone choosing the exact moment to speak. "Are you going with her alone?" Kim asked, pointing at Hanna. Virginia looked at Kim with the calculated patience of someone who had already dealt with inconvenient people. "That is none of your business." Kim tilted her head, calm. "Yes, it is. Because she is my sister." Ryan let out a short laugh of contempt. "She is fine. Is she not?" Hanna opened her mouth to say she is, because it was a reflex. Only before the word came out, Virginia's phone vibrated on the table. She looked at the screen and her face changed in an almost imperceptible way, a hard satisfaction. She slid the phone closer without showing it to anyone, and then she said, in a tone that sounded like the announcement of a sentence that was both good and bad at the same time, "Confirmed. The qualifiers will be in 2 months, and if you make it in, the final training happens in the host country, with other teams, with the eyes of the entire world upon you." Ryan straightened his posture as if he could already taste the stage. Hanna kept her face firm, but inside, everything rearranged itself. 2 months. 2 months of a more pressured Ryan. a more controlling. Virginia, and her trapped in the middle, trying to hold on to her own axis. Kim did not look away from Hanna. She did not ask for an explanation. She did not make a speech. She only said, clearly, like someone turning on a light in a dark hallway, "Then you are going to need someone on your side who is not trying to break you." Hanna felt a chill in her stomach. Only now, it was not incredulity. It was an alert, because, for the first time, someone said out loud what she had been trying to silence. And Virginia, without raising her tone, replied as if she were talking about a common practice, already closing the subject. "Those who cannot handle pressure do not go to the Olympics." The ice outside had not yet frozen completely, but Hanna already knew. Winter had begun inside her own life. And 2 months from now, when she entered that rink for the qualifiers, it would not just be her name that was at stake. It would be her chance to remain whole. The airplane touched the ground with a dry impact that shuddered through the entire cabin. Hanna did not look out the window immediately. She preferred to release her belt slowly, stretch her fingers, and take a deep breath, as if her body needed to understand that this was no longer local practice, no longer a small circuit, and no longer a distant dream. It was real. Ryan was already standing in the aisle before the line even began to move, fiddling with his phone and commenting loudly about the hotel, the rink, and the level of the competitors. He spoke like someone who already knew everything, as if he were returning to a territory that belonged to him. Virginia said nothing. She observed. She always observed. Outside, the air was colder than Hanna had expected. The official bus dropped the delegations in front of the sports complex, a massive building of glass and steel, with flags from various countries fluttering side by side. The place smelled of fresh ice, metal, and anxiety. This was it. Inside the arena, the sound of blades echoed in several directions at once. A Japanese pair rehearsed steps with almost mechanical precision. A Canadian couple practiced lifts in silence, synchronized as if they shared the same center of gravity. A European group discussed music with their coach, voices low, expressions concentrated. Hanna stopped for a moment at the edge of the rink, absorbing it all. She felt as though the world had suddenly grown larger, and she was right in the middle of it. Ryan did not stop. He stepped onto the ice as if it were just another ordinary practice, carving out space with his presence, drawing attention without asking for permission. Virginia stayed at the edge, analyzing the other athletes with the same look she used to evaluate numbers. Hanna put on her skates slowly, trying to ignore the weight of that first impression. The ice reflected the ceiling lights like an irregular mirror, and every scratch left a visible mark, as if every mistake there would be amplified. When she finally entered, she noticed that the music was coming from several directions at once. Different rhythms, different languages, different styles. This was a true international competition. The Olympics were on the horizon. It was then that she felt someone watching her. It was not Virginia, nor Ryan. It was a different look, distant and technical. On the other side of the rink, leaning against the boards, a man followed the practice with silent attention. He did not seem curious. He seemed to be evaluating movement, timing, and axis. Hanna looked away before the contact lasted too long, adjusted her position, and waited for Ryan to signal the start of the sequence. And it was at that moment, in the first real practice among competitors from various countries, that something shifted out of place. The mistake was not the jump. It was the smell. Daniel noticed it even before. He raised his eyes. The air at the rink had that clean chill of recently smoothed ice, the sound of blades cutting the surface, and music leaking from the high speakers. Everything seemed normal until a note crossed the wrong space. Alcohol. He turned his face. The American pair was on the ice on the other side of the arena. She moved with a rare naturalness, as if every change in direction had been decided even before the body executed it. He followed right behind, always a moment. Out of time, compensating with strength and with a voice that was too loud for a practice session. Daniel rested his elbow on the boards and watched. Ryan entered the lift already speaking. The sentence did not arrive in full, but the tone did. Hanna rose, sustained more by her own technique than by his control. On the way down, his arm tightened too hard around her wrist, and her blade scraped a bit crookedly before aligning. Daniel noticed the micro-correction. It was the kind of Things seen by someone who has observed professional figure skating for years. It was not a visible error to a common audience. It was a detail known to those who understand the body. Ryan spoke again, louder this time. She nodded. Virginia stood at the edge, observing like someone measuring productivity. No gesture of correction. No gesture of protection. Daniel looked away for a second, trying to decide if that was his problem. It was not. He was there to train, to maintain focus on his own routine, to reach the Olympic Games in one piece. However, there was something in that dynamic that was bothersome, not just because of the shouting, but because of the control. On the next jump, Ryan missed the entry. His axis went off by half a degree, a minimal thing, but enough to disrupt the pair. Hanna adjusted instantly, compensated for the center, and avoided the fall. Pure technique. Ryan struck his blade against the ice and spoke quietly, but Daniel could read the phrase by the movement of his mouth. Pay attention. Daniel furrowed his brow. She had saved the move. Hanna responded with a short okay and returned to the starting mark. No argument, no theatrical expression, only execution. The music began again. Daniel took a sip of cold isotonic drink without taking his eyes off the rink. He had seen tough coaches, demanding partners, people who push for every last detail. That was part of the sport. This, however, seemed like something else. When the sequence ended, Hanna left the ice first. She took a bottle of iced tea from her backpack, drank quickly, and stared at the ice like someone recalculating a route. Ryan followed right behind, opened an energy drink can, and said something too close to her face. Her body became rigid for a moment before she responded. Daniel looked away. He did not want to seem like he was spying. Yet, a few seconds later, he looked again. Virginia was saying something to Ryan, and he was nodding, somewhat impatiently. Then he pointed at Hanna without even looking at her, as if she were a replacement part. Daniel took a deep breath and returned to his training. A triple spin, a step sequence, a clean landing. The body obeyed. His mind, however, kept returning to that image of a tightened wrist and unfair correction. At the end of the session, he went out to the side corridor where quick drinks were sold. He grabbed a large cold brew and leaned against the wall, swirling the ice. Inside the cup while observing the movement of the arena, delegations passing by, coaches talking, people adjusting costumes. That was when she appeared. Hanna walked slowly, carrying her backpack on one shoulder, looking at her phone. She stopped at the snack machine, hesitated, then chose a ready-made vanilla milkshake and kept spinning the cap before opening it. Daniel did not plan to speak. It just happened. You saved that lift. She raised her face, surprised. Her eyes evaluated him quickly, like someone measuring risk before responding. It is part of the job, she said. Her voice was calm, but it carried a fatigue that did not come only from training. Daniel gave a half smile. It is, but not everyone notices. She opened the milkshake and took a sip before answering. You noticed. I am in the business. She tilted her head. Skater? Singles. Which country? Brazil. Hanna remained silent for a second, processing. It was not common to find a Brazilian there. Cool, she said finally. Simple, without exaggeration. The silence between them was not uncomfortable. It was curious, as if both were trying to understand why that conversation existed. Daniel pointed toward the ice in the distance. You are very good. She let out a short breath. I work very hard, it shows. She fiddled with the cap of the milkshake, spinning it slowly. You too. Daniel leaned his shoulder against the wall. How long until you go in? One more block. Good luck. She nodded, ready to go, but hesitated for half a second. Thank you for the comment. It was technical, he said. Nothing personal. She raised a slight eyebrow. Better that way. And she left. Daniel stood watching the empty corridor for a few seconds, with the feeling that this girl was always defending herself from something that was not there at that moment. Later that night, the organization released a few hours without training because they were performing maintenance on the main ice. The teams received suggestions for activities around the city. Cinema was one of them. Daniel went without much expectation. He needed to turn off his head for a few hours. He bought a large iced tea at the entrance and entered the already dark theater. He sat on the side as he always did. He preferred to see the entire environment. Almost 10 minutes later, someone sat 2 seats ahead. He recognized her by the way she tied her hair before settling in. Hanna. She was alone. Ryan was not there. Virginia was not either. Daniel watched for a moment, then stood up, walked down the aisle, and sat one row behind. He said nothing. He just stayed there. In the middle of the movie, she turned her face as if she had felt someone watching. Their eyes met for a second in the dim light of the screen. Daniel raised his cup of iced tea in a simple gesture of greeting. She nodded slightly. Nothing romantic, nothing cinematic, just recognition. When the movie ended and the lights came on, people began to leave, talking loudly. Hanna took a bit longer, gathering her backpack calmly. Daniel waited in the corridor. When she passed, he said only, "The movie was better than I expected." She stopped, surprised. "I thought so too. Did you come alone?" "Yes." He nodded. "It is good to have some time away from the ice." She took a deep breath, as if that sentence had more weight than it seemed. "It is." They walked out together to the outdoor area. The cold night air felt lighter than the air in the arena. Daniel spoke first. "Your partner, does he always train like that?" She looked straight ahead before answering. "He wants to win. Everyone wants to. He wants it more." Daniel did not push. She continued, as if she had decided to complete the thought. "We work well when it works. And when it does not work?" She took a second. "We make it work." Daniel leaned against the railing, watching the illuminated street. "You do not have to answer this. Just, it seems like you carry the training on your back." She let out a short breath. "I carry a lot of things." The sentence hung in the air, simple and true. Daniel nodded, without intruding. "If you need help practicing any sequence, sometimes it is good to have someone looking from the outside." She turned her face to him, evaluating. There was no pressure in the proposal, nor invasive curiosity, just a clean offer. "Thank you," she said. "I will remember." They stood there, for a few more seconds, sharing that rare space where no one shouted instructions. No one evaluated. No one demanded. When she finally said she needed to go back, Daniel only nodded. "Good night, Hanna." She blinked, surprised that he remembered her name. "Good night, Daniel." And she left. Daniel watched until she disappeared around the corner of the building. It was not passion. It was the uncomfortable certainty that, if no one did anything, that girl was going to break before she even stepped onto the Olympic rink. And he did not know it yet, but that thought was going to change everything. The following morning, the cold entered through the bedroom window even before the alarm clock rang. Hanna was already awake. She had slept little, but her body got up on time, as it always did when there was early training. She sat on the edge of the bed for a few seconds, looking at her own hands. They were marked by the effort, but firm. They still obeyed. That was enough for her to continue. In the hotel dining hall, the delegation spread out at different tables, voices mixing in various languages. Hanna took a glass of apple juice, a yogurt, and a piece of toast. Ryan was already seated when she arrived, fiddling with his phone with a furrowed brow. There was a large cup of strong iced coffee next to him. He raised his eyes and analyzed her plate. "That does not sustain a long training session," he said. "I will eat later," she replied. Ryan gave a short smile, like someone who had already decided she was wrong. "Later you will say you are losing strength." Virginia appeared immediately after, with an iced tea in her hand, and the same calculated expression as always. She did not even offer a greeting. She only evaluated the table, the posture of the two, and said, "Today we are going to test consistency. I do not want any concentration errors." Hanna nodded. Ryan did not answer. He just picked up his cup and took a sip. On the way to the arena, the silence inside the car was heavy. Hanna watched the streets pass by, trying to organize her own head before entering the ice. She knew that the first training of the day usually set the tone for the rest. If it started poorly, everything would become more difficult. When they arrived, the rink was already full. Other pairs were training, coaches spoke softly at the edges, and music leaked from different speakers. Hanna put on her skates slowly, feeling her body wake up for the work. Ryan entered the ice first. His movement was stiffer than usual, and the smell confirmed what Hanna had already noticed at breakfast. He had drunk more than he should have. Virginia watched from the edge, her arms crossed. "Start with the lift," she said. Hanna glided to the starting position. Ryan held her hand. The touch was heavier, less precise. When the music began, he pulled before the timing. Hanna adjusted so as not to lose her axis. She rose anyway, sustained by her own technique. On the way down, he did not follow the center correctly. The weight came down crooked and the impact shook both of them. She managed to stabilize, but her shoulder complained. Ryan let go of her hand and spoke too close. "You are slow." Hanna took a deep breath. The entry came early. He laughed, impatient. "You always have an excuse." Virginia called from the edge. Again, without a pause, without technical correction, without asking if she was okay. Hanna returned to the starting mark. Her shoulder was still throbbing, but she ignored it. They repeated. Ryan pulled too hard this time, as if he wanted to compensate. Hanna rose with precision, kept her body aligned, and came down clean. Virginia nodded. "Better. Now do the complete sequence." Ryan passed by her before returning to the position and murmured, "See how it works when you stop thinking." The phrase kept echoing inside her head as the music restarted. Hanna executed everything. Steps, spins, transitions. Her body responded because she had trained it to do so. However, her mind carried a heavy burden. During the break, she sat on the boards and grabbed her bottle of iced tea. She drank slowly, looking at the ice as if it were possible to find an answer there. She knew Ryan was not just demanding, he was unstable. She also knew Virginia saw it and did not interfere. After all, he was her son. Even so, part of her insisted on believing that this was part of the journey, that champions endured pressure, that perhaps this was the price to get where she had always wanted to be. Ryan returned with another can in his hand. He opened it and drank half before even speaking. "Let us go. I do not have all day." Virginia agreed. "Concentration," she said curtly. The training continued like that for nearly 2 hours. Every minimal error became a personal observation. Every success became an obligation. Hanna executed everything, but her body was already at its limit. When Virginia finally ended the session, Hanna left the ice with stiff muscles and a full head. In the locker room, she stayed alone for a few minutes, sitting on the bench with her skates still on her feet. She ran her hand over her face and took a deep breath. There were no tears. There was exhaustion and an insistent question she avoided formulating completely. She began to realize that not everything there could be called training. She knew Ryan was difficult. She knew Virginia applied pressure, but she also knew that without them she might not be there. This idea always returned and weighed more than any doubt. When she left the locker room, Daniel was in the corridor, leaning against the wall with a bottle of juice in his hand. He did not seem to be waiting, but he did not seem surprised to see her either. "Heavy training," he said. Hanna nodded. "It always is." He observed the way she was holding her shoulder. "Are you okay?" "I am," she replied automatically. Daniel did not push. He only nodded. "If you need help reviewing any entry, I train later on the secondary ice." She stood looking at him for a moment, evaluating that simple offer. There was no demand. There was no hidden expectation. "Thank you," she said again. And for the first time since she had arrived there, Hanna felt that someone was speaking to her as a person, and not as a function. That did not resolve anything at that moment, but it opened up space for something she had not felt in a long time: relief. And as she walked back to the hotel, she realized that this small, almost invisible space could grow. She just did not know how much yet. The day began with the sound of blades even before the music started. Hanna was already on the ice when the first teams entered. The arena still smelled of freshly washed ice and cold metal. She enjoyed those moments when the place was not yet full, when she could hear her own movements without the echo of other bodies. Ryan arrived later, walking far too fast, opening his backpack with abrupt motions. He did not even offer a greeting. He simply tossed his bottle onto the bench, stepped onto the ice and said, "Let us go straight to the long sequence." Virginia did not even ask how she was. She merely raised 2 fingers, a signal that she wanted to see a repetition. Hanna nodded and glided to the starting position. Her body was warmed up, but her head was not light. She had slept poorly, thinking about the competition this weekend and Virginia's words from the previous night. A medal or nothing. Ryan held her hand for the entrance to the spin, and she noticed immediately that his touch was harder, his center unstable, and the scent confirmed that he had been drinking again. She said nothing. She adjusted her weight and followed through. During the second transition, he pulled before the right time. The movement came out crooked, and she had to correct herself in the air to avoid falling. When she landed, the blade scraped hard against the ice. Ryan spoke far too close to her. "You are slow," she answered quietly. "You pulled early." He moved his face even closer. "There is always an excuse, is there not?" Virginia called out from the edge. "Repetition." No pause, no technical adjustment, only an order. Hanna returned to the mark. Her shoulder was already tired and the practice had not even truly begun. She tried to focus only on the music, on the axis, on the internal count. That was how she survived the difficult days. They repeated the entire sequence 4 times in a row. On the last one, Ryan lost his center. During the lift, and the weight shifted incorrectly, Hanna held on as best she could. She came down unevenly, felt the impact travel up her spine and lock in her lower back. She took a deep breath. Ryan struck his blade against the ice. "If you enter crooked like that in the competition, it is over for us, and the fault will be yours." Hanna stood looking at him for a second, thinking of what to say in response. Her body was still vibrating from the impact. Virginia interrupted before she could. "You have no margin for error. Other pairs are clean. You are not." Virginia said that looking directly at Hanna, without changing her tone. The training continued heavily until the middle of the morning. When they finally stopped, Hanna left the ice with heavy legs and a crowded mind. She sat on the edge and opened her bottle of iced tea. She drank slowly, watching the movements of the other teams. She began to notice a pattern that she had not wanted to see before. Other pairs made mistakes too. Other teams discussed adjustments. However, no one spoke to their partner the way Ryan spoke to her. No one received demands in the way Virginia directed them. That was not the standard. It was specific. While she was changing her skates, she noticed someone standing in the side hallway. Daniel. He was leaning against the wall, observing the activity on the rink with quiet attention, like someone who does not intend to interrupt, but is also not there by chance. When she passed by, he said only, "Do you still have ice time today?" "I have more later." "I do as well." She nodded. He added, "I am going to practice at the secondary rink after lunch, if you want to review anything without an audience." She took a second before responding that she would go. The secondary ice was almost empty at that hour. There was only the sound of their blades and the distant echo from the main arena. The air there felt lighter. Daniel entered, performed a short spin to test the surface, and waited. When Hanna entered, he did not start by giving instructions. He simply asked, "Which part do you feel weighs the most?" She thought before answering. "The entrance to the lift. His timing changes." Daniel nodded. "Then let us test variations." They started slowly, without music, merely marking the count. Daniel observed every attempt and adjusted specific details. The angle of the shoulder, the entry point, the direction of her gaze. He spoke calmly, and only when there was something real to correct, and that made each piece of guidance from him carry weight. Hanna noticed something strange there. For the first time in a long while, someone was helping without demanding something first. After a few attempts, she nailed a clean entrance. Daniel smiled. "You see, it is not you." The sentence lingered there, light but heavy at the same time. She rested her hands on the edge, breathing deeply. "I know, but sometimes it is good to hear it." She nodded. They practiced for nearly 1 hour. No shouting, no pressure, no personal comments. Only technique. When they left, Hanna noticed that her body was tired, but her head was more organized. In the hallway, Kim appeared leaning against the wall, checking her phone. When she saw the two of them, she raised an eyebrow. "So you are the famous Brazilian," she said to Daniel. He smiled. "Famous is an exaggeration." Kim extended her hand. "I am Kim." "Daniel." She turned to Hanna. "Are you feeling better?" Hanna nodded. "I practiced a new entrance." Kim looked at Daniel. "Good." She said nothing else, but it was clear that she approved. The routine stopped being just practice when the first qualifying round began. The arena was fuller that morning. The audience was scattered in the stands. Flags were raised here and there, and the judges were lined up behind the long tables. The ice reflected the bright lights from the ceiling, and every scratch left by the blade seemed more visible than during practice. There were no repetitions there. There were decisions. Hanna stood near the rink entrance watching the previous pairs. A French team finished under enthusiastic applause. They made a clean exit. maintaining firm posture until the very last second. Ryan watched without comment. Virginia was writing in her notebook, evaluating rhythm, difficulty, and the probable score. "They came prepared," Virginia said. "You need to be memorable." Hanna nodded. She did not answer. She adjusted her breathing to the count that was already running in her head. When their names were called, Ryan entered first, with an open posture, as if the space already belonged to him. Hanna followed, aligning her body to the music even before the first note filled the arena. The performance began strong. The initial steps were clean, fast, with precise changes in direction. The audience noticed the sound of the blades, synchronized with the music, and the pair occupied the ice with presence. During the first lift, Ryan entered a little faster than rehearsed. Hanna felt it immediately, adjusted her center in the air, and maintained a perfect line on the descent. The audience reacted as if it had been planned. The sequence of spins was steady. The exit was clean. The second half of the choreography grew in intensity, and Hanna threw her whole body into the final jump. When the music ended, they were in the center of the rink, maintaining their posture and breathing heavily. The applause broke out even before they reached the edge, loud and enthusiastic. Ryan smiled, satisfied. Virginia closed her notebook slowly, like someone who already knew. The scores went up. Hanna looked at the scoreboard, absorbing the number. It was not just a qualification. It was a standout performance. In the hallway, Ryan turned to her. "See, when you enter firmly, it works." Hanna did not answer. She knew that half of what had happened there had been her adjustment in the air, not his entry at the correct time. Virginia said only, "This is what I expect from you." The second day brought the short program, which was even more decisive. The arena was packed, the noise from the crowd was even louder, and the pressure was more visible on all the teams. During the warm-up, Hanna noticed that Ryan was different. The scent confirmed it before she had to look twice. He had been drinking. Not enough to lose control, but enough to enter the movements out of rhythm. Virginia saw it and did not comment. "You go on in 8 minutes." Hanna stood looking at him, assessing the risk. He smiled as if nothing were out of place. They entered. The music began. The first half was impeccable. Clean steps, synchronized spins, fluid transitions. The audience followed closely. During the second lift, Ryan entered half a degree off-center. Hanna felt the failure in the air and adjusted. Quickly, sustaining the line and descending cleanly. The reaction came immediately from the stands. They finished the performance with high energy, a firm final position. The applause came even louder than the day before. When the scores appeared, the result confirmed. Qualified for the final. Ryan flashed a wide smile. Virginia nodded, satisfied. The plan continued to work. Hanna maintained her posture, but inside she registered something else. They had been incredible there, and yet she knew how much that depended on how much she was able to compensate. That was the weight. During a practice session on Thursday afternoon, he arrived clearly impaired. His movement was too loose, his voice louder, his concentration scattered. Virginia saw it. She did not interrupt. "You need this medal," she said to Hanna before they went on. "Without it, the entire investment loses its meaning." Hanna nodded and stepped onto the ice with the weight of that sentence on her back. By the third repetition of the full sequence, Hanna already knew something was going to go wrong. Ryan was heavier with his hand, more abrupt in his entrance. The smell of alcohol came on strong whenever he drew near. Even so, Virginia did not interrupt. She only made a short gesture from the edge. Again, Hanna returned to the mark. The music began. The first half came out steady, sustained more by her than by him. When they reached the main lift, Hanna felt the error even before the push. Ryan entered too fast and pulled the weight without stabilizing his own center. She went up because that was what she did. Her body already knew how to compensate. In the air, she realized he did not have enough support. "Ryan," she tried to warn quietly. He tried to correct in the middle of the movement, but it was already too late. His arm gave way first. His hand lost its firmness, and his body came down incorrectly. The impact was dry. Ryan fell before she did, hitting his knee hard on the ice. The sound echoed in the arena like a short snap. Hanna managed to exit the movement and balance herself, but he remained on the ground, locked, holding his leg. For a second, no one said anything. Ryan tried to get up and his face changed instantly. "Damn it," he muttered. Hanna took a step closer, still not knowing if she should touch him. Virginia arrived quickly from the edge to evaluate. What happened? Ryan tried to support his weight and failed. The knee did not respond. "I do not know." It pulled. Virginia looked first at the leg, then at Hanna. "You entered out of time." Hanna stood still, absorbing that. "He lost his footing," she replied, firm for the first time. Virginia did not change her tone. "You know that the lift depends on the entry of both." Ryan let out a short sound, irritated by the situation. "Just give me a minute." He tried to stand again. The leg failed once more. Daniel was already approaching. He did not ask if he could help. He simply stepped onto the ice and stopped close enough to evaluate the situation. "Do not force it," he said to Ryan directly. "If it is a ligament, you will only make it worse." Ryan looked at him with automatic irritation, but he did not get up. Daniel knelt down, observing the position of the leg. "Did you feel a pop?" Ryan breathed heavily. "I felt a pull." Daniel nodded. "Then get off the ice." Virginia crossed her arms. "We have a competition. In a few days." Daniel raised his eyes to her without raising his voice. "If he continues now, there will be no competition at all." Hanna stood watching that exchange, her heart racing for a reason different from the training. For the first time, someone had said something that Virginia did not control. Ryan took a deep breath and finally accepted the arm that Daniel extended. When he left the ice, the arena seemed quieter than before, even with other teams practicing around them. Hanna stood still in the center of the rink for a moment, not knowing if she should leave as well. Virginia looked at her. "You will need to be perfect if he does not recover quickly." The sentence came dryly, with no room for concern for him, nor for her. Hanna nodded, but inside something had changed. It was not just pressure. It was the clear feeling that, to Virginia, they were not people. They were results. When she left the ice, Daniel was still there, accompanying Ryan to the bench. Hanna approached slowly. "Will he be all right?" she asked. "If he stops today, yes. If he continues, no." She nodded. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Daniel said more quietly, "You do not have to hold everything together by yourself." Hanna did not answer right away, but the sentence remained there, steady, like something she could no longer pretend she did not hear. And while Virginia was already discussing the schedule and recovery as if nothing had happened, Hanna realized that this moment had broken more than just the practice. It had broken the certainty that she needed to endure everything in silence. The morning following Ryan's accident arrived with a gray sky and the silent promise of snow. Hanna woke up before her alarm, as always, but remained in bed staring at the ceiling for several minutes, feeling the weight of her body and the low hum of worry in her head. Her shoulder ached, her lower back complained, but the worst part was that tightness in her chest that had not gone away since she saw Ryan fall on the ice. She knew she was not to blame. She knew it, but Virginia had spent the previous afternoon repeating phrases like, "You need to anticipate his mistakes and a safe lift depends on both of you," with an intonation that made it clear who was responsible for the failure in that equation. At breakfast, the hotel dining hall was emptier. Hanna grabbed a yogurt, a piece of toast, and a glass of orange juice, sitting at a distant table so she would not have to talk to anyone. She chewed slowly, watching the other athletes come and go with their trays when her phone vibrated. Daniel asked if training would be light today. Hanna looked at the screen and felt a strange warmth rise up her face. She replied quickly that she did not know yet, as Virginia was still going to evaluate Ryan. His reply came immediately, saying that if there was time left, there was a coffee shop near the arena with incredible iced tea, better than the hotels. She typed back questioning if he had already researched coffee shops in a country that was not his own. "Always," he countered, claiming it was his Olympic specialty. Hanna laughed to herself, a short laugh that made a Korean athlete at the next table look over strangely. She hid her reaction, drank more juice, and wrote only that she would see. Daniel finalized by saying he would be at the reception at 17 hours, and that if she did not show up, he would drink too. Hanna put her phone away with a sensation she did not quite know how to name. It was not anxiety. It was not excitement. It was something quieter, as if a small door had opened in a dark hallway, and she could see a bit of light. The morning practice was tense. Ryan was on the bench with an ice pack on his knee, his face clouded, responding in monosyllables. Virginia circled around like a predator, noting things in a notebook, talking on the phone in a low tone, casting glances at Hanna that seemed to measure her. "You are going to train alone today," Virginia said finally. "I need to see if you can sustain the full choreography without him." Hanna nodded and stepped onto the ice. The music began and she executed every movement with the precision of someone who has repeated the same thing for months. Only there, alone, something changed. There was no weight of Ryan's body to compensate for. There was no breath of his near her ear. There was no tightening of his hand at the wrong moments. She skated only with the music and with her own body. And for the first time in a long time, she felt the ice respond the way it used to respond on the lake. The blade glided free. The spins came out clean. The jumps landed light. She increased her speed just to feel the wind on her face, opening her arms in a sequence that was not in the choreography, simply because her body asked for it. When the music ended, she was out of breath, but smiling. Virginia watched from the edge with an impenetrable expression. "Beautiful," she said dryly, "but competition is not free. Choreography, save that for the warm-up." Hanna swallowed her smile and returned to the starting mark. But the feeling remained. At 17 hours sharp, Hanna was in the hotel lobby, hesitating between going to the elevator or to the door. Her body still ached from practice. Her head still felt heavy with Virginia's phrases, but her feet decided before her reason. Daniel was leaning against the wall near the entrance, wearing a simple black coat and a small backpack on his back. When he saw her approach, a smile appeared on his face, one of those that do not try to hide that they are happy. "You came. You said you were going to drink 2 teas, she replied, stopping in front of him. "I wanted to see if it was true." A lie. But it works as blackmail. She laughed, a looser laugh than the one from the morning. "Where is this legendary coffee shop?" 20 minutes by subway. "Are you up for it?" Hanna looked to the side, as if she expected Virginia to appear out of nowhere to forbid it. Then she took a deep breath. "I am in." The city subway was clean, silent, with upholstered benches and luminous maps flashing the names of the stations in 3 languages. They sat next to each other, placed their backpacks on their laps. The window glass was fogged by the contrast between the cold outside and the heat of the cabin. Daniel pointed to a station on the map. "We get off here. The coffee shop is on a pedestrian street, full of small shops. There is no cheese. Bread, but the tea is good. Do you miss Brazil?" Hanna asked. He took a while to answer, looking at his own reflection in the glass. "I do, but I miss the people more than the place. My mother, my father, my friends. The rest, you get used to it." "How long have you been away?" 3 years. "Since I got the scholarship." Hanna remained in silence, processing. 3 years away from family, living alone in a foreign country, training for a dream that had no guarantee. "It must be hard." "It is," he said. "But it is also a choice. No one forced me." She looked away. "Sometimes we make choices and then discover they were not exactly choices." Daniel turned his face to her, studying her profile. "Are you talking about yourself?" Hanna did not answer immediately. The subway braked, the doors opened, a group of tourists entered talking loudly. She waited for the movement to pass. "I am talking about everyone who wakes up and does what they have to do without asking if they want to." He nodded slowly. "I know how it is." The coffee shop was at the end of a cobblestone street, with small yellow lights hanging between the facades and iron tables on the sidewalk, even with the cold. The smell of sweet bread and fresh coffee came through the open door, mixed with the steam rising from the cups. Daniel ordered a peach iced tea for her and an iced coffee for himself, and they sat at a table near the window, where they could see people passing by in thick coats and colorful scarves. "So," he began, swirling the cup in his hands. "How was practice?" Hanna took a long sip of the tea before answering. The sweetness of the peach exploded in her mouth, fresh, vivid, strange. "I trained alone." "Alone how?" "Virginia wanted to see if I could sustain the full choreography without Ryan." "And did you?" "I did. But it was not just that." She paused, thinking about how to explain. "It was the first time in months that I skated without compensating for anyone, without adjusting my body to cover for someone else's mistakes. Just me and the ice." Daniel did not look away. "And how was it?" "Good," she admitted quietly. It was very good. He smiled, but it was not the smile of someone who was satisfied with the answer. It was the smile of someone who was seeing something that had not been seen for a long time. You remember how it feels then? I remember. That is important. Hanna lowered her gaze to the cup, swirling the straw slowly. Virginia did not like, what did she say? That competition is not free choreography, that I should save that for the warm-up. Daniel tilted his head, evaluating. And what do you think? I think she is right. Technically. But, Hanna sighed. But a part of me thinks it was the best practice in a long time. And that should not be a problem, right? It should not, he agreed. They remained in silence for a moment, the noise of the coffee shop around them filling the space. An espresso machine let out a loud hiss. Someone laughed at a nearby table. A couple argued animatedly about which cake to order. Why do you stay with them? Daniel said. Hanna felt the question enter like a thin, precise blade. It did not hurt, but it left a mark. Because without them, I would not be here. Here where? In this city? In this competition? All of it. Daniel took a sip of his coffee, thinking, do you really believe that? What do you mean? I mean that when I saw you on the ice on the first day, it was not Virginia who made me stop to look. It was you. Your movement, your precision, your way of occupying the space. That did not come from her. Hanna remained motionless, his words echoing inside her like a repeated sound. She gave me structure, she said, but her voice came out weak. Structure is different from control. The sentence hung between them, heavy, warm. You do not know her, Hanna exclaimed. No, he admitted, but I know people who use the dreams of others as fuel for their own interests. I have seen it up close. Hanna looked at him, searching Daniel's face for some clue of what he was talking about, but he offered no more, only sustained her gaze. Your partner drinks, Daniel said, changing his tone, but not the subject. Everyone notices, not just me. Hanna looked away. He has issues, everyone does. The difference is what they choose to do with them. He is good on the ice, when he is not drunk. The truth stung because it was so simple. Virginia covers for him, Hanna said, her voice low. Because she is his mother. But you are not her daughter. Hanna felt her stomach tighten. It was the first time someone had put into words what she had been feeling for months. She was not the daughter of Virginia. She was a function, a part, an instrument. What should I do, she asked, and her voice emerged almost involuntarily, as if the question had been trapped for a long time, and finally found the space to breathe. Daniel took a moment to respond. When he spoke, it was with care, weighing every single word. I am not going to tell you what to do, but I will tell you what I see. I see a skater who carries the weight of two people on the ice. I see a woman who adjusts her own body to cover for mistakes that are not hers. I see someone who extinguishes her own light so that others may shine. And I see fear. Hanna held her breath. Fear. Fear of losing the little you have conquered. Fear that if you question anything, it will all come crashing down. Fear of discovering that perhaps you are capable of more than they allow you to be. How do you know all of this? She asked. Because I have felt it. Not in the exact same way, but similarly. When I started in the stock market, I had a coach who treated me like a number, a result. However, I was lucky my family noticed before I broke and they pulled me out of there. And you went? I went. I lost a year of training, and I almost lost my spot on the national team. But I did not lose myself. Hanna looked at her own hands resting on the table. They were steady, but inside, everything was trembling. And what if it is too late for me? Daniel reached out and touched her wrist lightly, just to draw her attention. It never is. As long as you are breathing, as long as you are skating, as long as you are feeling, it is not too late. His touch was warm, different from the harsh grips of Ryan. It was a presence without pressure. Thank you, she whispered. You are welcome. He did not pull his hand away. She did not move her arm. They remained that way for a few seconds, the movement of the coffee shop around them serving as a backdrop for something that was beginning to take shape slowly, like ice forming on a calm lake. When they returned to the hotel, the night had closed in completely. The city lights reflected in the puddles on the sidewalks, and the air was so cold that every breath became a cloud. They stopped at the hotel door, reluctant to end the encounter. Thank you for the tea, Hanna said. Thank you for the company. She smiled, a small, genuine smile. Tomorrow there is training again. There always is. But perhaps afterward we could do this again. Daniel tilted his head, a spark in his eyes. Is that an invitation? It is a possibility. He laughed softly. I will consider it. Hanna turned to go inside, but something made her stop. She looked at him over her shoulder. Daniel, yes? Were you serious? About what you said in the coffee shop? He took a step forward, closing the distance between them. I meant every word. Even though you do not really know me, I know enough. What, for example? He thought for a second, keeping his eyes fixed on hers. I know that you have a talent that did not come from any coach. I know that you endure more than you should. I know that, even with all of this, you still manage to smile when you skate alone. And I know that you deserve someone who sees you, not just what you can provide. Hanna felt her heart race at a rhythm that had nothing to do with the cold or physical effort. That is a lot for someone I barely know. It is what I see. The wind blew harder, bringing the first snowflakes of the night. Small, light, hovering in the air like frozen dust. Daniel raised his hand and with care brushed a snowflake from her hair. The gesture was so natural, so unhurried, that Hanna did not even think to pull back. May I kiss you? He asked. The question was simple, direct, without games, and for that very reason it was incredibly powerful. Hanna nodded, a short, almost imperceptible movement. He tilted his face slowly and kissed her. The kiss was soft at first, just a touch of lips, like someone testing if it were real. Then he deepened it, moving his hand up to her face, sinking his fingers into her hair, the heat of his mouth contrasting with the cold of the night. Hanna felt the world vanish, the noise of the cars, the wind, the snow, everything disappeared. Only his presence remained, the way he held her face as if it were something precious. When they pulled apart, his eyes were open, searching for hers. It has been a long time since I have done that, he admitted, his voice husky. It has been a long time since I have let anyone, she replied. He smiled, and it was a different smile than before, more intimate, more exposed. I will let you go inside. That would be best. She turned to go but stopped. Once more. Daniel? Yes? Tomorrow after training? I will be here. She entered the hotel with her heart beating fast, her lips still warm, and the snow beginning to accumulate on the shoulders of her coat. In the elevator, she leaned her head against the metal wall and closed her eyes. For the first time in months, she did not think of Virginia, or Ryan, or competition, or fear. She thought of him, and, more importantly, she thought of herself. The following morning, Kim appeared in Hanna's room before breakfast. She knocked on the door, entered without waiting for an answer, and threw herself onto the bed beside her sister. Wake up, we need to talk. Hanna opened one eye, sleepy. What time is it? 7. It does not matter. Wake up. Hanna sat up in bed, rubbing her face. Kim already had her arms crossed, wearing an expression that said she was not there to play around. You went out yesterday. I did. With the Brazilian. Yes. And what? Kim raised an eyebrow. Hanna, do not treat me as if I am blind. You arrived back at the hotel with a different look on your face. What happened? Hanna hesitated, but she knew there was no use hiding things from Kim. It never worked. We talked a lot. About everything. Everything, what? About training, about Ryan, Virginia, about choices. Kim straightened her posture. And what did he say? Hanna told her. Not everything, but enough. The coffee shop, the subway, Daniel's words about control and structure, about deserving to be seen. When she reached the part about the kiss, her voice grew lower. Kim listened in silence, her expression changing gradually. He kissed you? Yes. And did you like it? Hanna looked away, but a smile betrayed her answer. I did. Kim was quiet for a moment, processing. Then she let out a long sigh. Finally. Finally what? Finally, someone who treats you like a human being. Finally, you let someone get close. Hanna frowned. What do you mean? Kim sat up on the bed, pulling her legs close to her body. I mean that for months I have watched you fading away. I see how they treat you. I try to talk and you change the subject. And then a guy appears who in a few days does what I could not do in months. He makes you remember that you exist. Hanna felt the weight of those words. Kim, no, listen. I am not angry. I am relieved. Because I was afraid you would never wake up. Wake up to what? To the truth. That you do not need them. That you are capable of more and that there are people who would help you without breaking you. Hanna took a deep breath. It is not that simple. It is not simple, but it is. Look at yourself. You have been different since yesterday. Lighter, more present. That is what matters. And the competition? What about the competition? If I leave, I lose everything. Kim tilted her head, her eyes fixed on those of her sister. Lose what? A coach who treats you like a tool? A partner who blames you for his own mistakes? Chance to win a medal that might not even compensate for what you are sacrificing? Hanna did not answer. Kim continued, softer now. Do you remember how it was at the lake? When you skated alone without anyone giving orders, just because you loved it? Hanna remembered. She remembered the crack of the ice, the wind on her face, the freedom. I remember. That still exists inside of you, but they buried it and you let them. The truth stung because it belonged to her. I do not know what to do anymore, Hanna admitted. Kim reached out and held the hand of her sister. You know, you are just afraid, but fear cannot rule your life. And what about Daniel? Kim asked after a while. What about him? Does he know everything? About Ryan, Virginia, the training sessions? He knows enough. And even so, he stayed. Hanna thought about the previous night, about the kiss, and about his words. He stayed. Kim smiled, a small but genuine smile. Then perhaps he is the right reason for you to make the right choice. The afternoon practice was a minefield. Ryan was back on the ice, his knee wrapped in an elastic bandage, his face set in a mixture of pain and irritation. He skated with limitations, avoiding full lifts, but he demanded that Hanna repeat the entries as if they were in the middle of a competition. Faster, he commanded. Stronger, closer. Hanna executed the movements, but her body no longer responded with the same blind obedience. Her mind was elsewhere, on the words of Kim, on the kiss from Daniel, on the possibility of a different life. Virginia watched from the edge with her arms crossed, her gaze sharp. Concentration, she said dryly. You are drifting. Ryan stopped in the middle of the ice, his breathing heavy. I am not the one who is drifting, he spoke, loud enough for other teams to hear. Ask her where she went last night. Hanna felt her blood boil. That is none of your business. It is my business, as long as you are my partner. Everything that affects your training is my business. Virginia approached the edge of the rink. What happened yesterday? Hanna took a deep breath. Nothing that will interfere with the competition. Ryan let out a short, bitter laugh. Sure, nothing. She just went out with the Brazilian, came back late, and today her head is on another planet. Virginia looked at Hanna with an expression she knew all too well. We will talk later, she said. Now, get back to training. The second half of the session was worse. Ryan forced every movement, testing the limits of his knee and the patience of Hanna. In the moments they passed close to each other, he murmured short, cutting sentences. Did you think it would get better? During one entry. He is not going to save you during another. Hanna ignored him. She focused on the music, on the axis, on the count. But every word of his entered her, thin as a razor. At the end of the practice, when she left the ice to get some water, Ryan followed her. He stopped too close, the smell of alcohol already present even at that hour of the day. What do you think he wants? He asked, low. To help you? To save you? He wants what every man wants. Once he gets it, he will vanish. Hanna kept her face steady. You know nothing about him. I know enough. I know he will not be here when the competition gets tough. I am the one who will be here, and you need to remember that. Before she could respond, Virginia called out, Hanna, now. Hanna walked away, but the words of Ryan stuck to her skin like cold sweat. At 17 hours, Daniel was in the lobby, just as they had agreed. This time, there was no hesitation. Hanna stepped out of the elevator and went straight to him, her steps firm, her decision made. Let us go, she said. He raised an eyebrow. No tea today? Later. First, I want to show you something. They took the subway in silence. Hanna took him to a lake located on the outskirts of the city, a large park, with a stretch of water that was beginning to freeze at the edges. It was not as isolated as the lake from her childhood, but it felt that way. The sky was clear, the sun setting behind the trees, painting the ice in shades of orange and pink. "What is this?" Daniel asked, stopping at the shore. "My place?" He looked at her, waiting. "When I was little," Hanna began, "I used to skate on a lake just like this one, alone, without a coach, without choreography, without anyone telling me what to do, just the ice and me. And you miss it." "I do, more than I realized." They walked slowly around the perimeter of the shore, their feet sinking slightly into the frozen grass. "Yesterday, during practice," Hanna continued, "I skated alone, and for a few minutes I went back there, to the lake, to the feeling that the ice belonged only to me." Daniel did not interrupt. He simply listened. Afterward, Virginia said that it was of no use for the competition, and I know that technically she is right, but a part of me thinks the competition should be about that, about feeling. He stopped, turning his face toward her. "And why can it not be? Because that is not how it works." "Who said?" Hanna opened her mouth to answer, but then closed it. "Who said? Virginia? Ryan? The unwritten rules of the sport?" "I do not know," she admitted. Daniel stepped closer, looking into her eyes. "You know how to skate with lightness. I saw it on the practice rink when no one was watching. You know how. But there are no buts. What there is fear. Fear that if you skate the way you feel, it will not be enough. Fear that they only need you for your function." Hanna felt her eyes sting, but she held back the tears. And what if it is true? It is not. Because a function does not feel, a function does not create, a function does not do what you did yesterday during practice, even without meaning to. The wind blew, bringing the scent of cold water and damp earth. "Why do you care so much?" she asked, her voice low. Daniel took a moment to respond. When he spoke, it was like someone sharing a secret. "Because I know what it is like to wake up every day and do what is expected of you, until you forget what it is you want. And because when I saw you on the ice, I saw someone who has not forgotten yet. You just need permission to remember." "Permission from whom?" "From yourself." She remained in silence, his words echoing inside her like a bell. "Can I tell you something?" he asked. "Of course. When I was younger, my father worked on a construction site. He would come home with his hands bruised, his body aching, and he would still take me to practice in the middle of the night, because that was the only time the public rink was empty." Hanna imagined the scene, the effort, the love. "One day I asked why he did it, and he said, 'Because one day you are going to be in a place where I will never be able to go, and I want you to get there whole.'" Her eyes filled with tears. Was he right? I am trying. But sometimes we forget what it means to be whole. We think it is just about winning, just about performing, just about pleasing others. Until someone reminds us, he turned his face to her, that someone, for me, was my mother when she took me away from that coach. And now, perhaps I can be that for you. Hanna could not speak. Emotion tightened her throat. Daniel reached out and held her hand. The touch was warm, firm, and secure. "You do not have to decide anything right now. You just need to know that you have a choice, and that, if you want, you do not have to make it alone." She squeezed his hand back. They stayed like that, standing on the shore of the lake, while the sky darkened slowly, and the first star appeared shyly on the horizon. "Thank you for seeing me," she said finally. "You are welcome." He lifted her hand and kissed her fingers, in a gesture so delicate it felt sacred. "It is difficult not to see you." She smiled, and it was a clean smile, without defenses. "Can I kiss you this time?" she asked. He laughed softly. "You can." She leaned in and kissed him with an intensity that surprised them both. It was no longer the shy kiss of the night before. It was the kiss of someone who decides, of someone who chooses, of someone who is beginning to believe that she deserves it. When they pulled apart, they were breathless, their eyes shining in the light of the late afternoon. "Shall we go back?" he asked. "Let us go." They walked hand in hand to the station, the night closing in around them, the cold biting at their skin, but their bodies were warmed by something that went beyond temperature. Upon returning to the hotel, Kim was waiting in Hanna's room. "I told Mother," she said as soon as her sister entered. Hanna stopped. "You told her what?" "Everything. Ryan, Virginia, the practices, the gripping, the drinking. Kim, calm down. She needs to know, and she knows now." And she said, "Something." Hanna sat on the bed, her heart racing. "What?" Kim pulled out her phone and showed a message from their mother. Tell her that I did not raise my daughter to be anyone's doormat. If she needs to come back, come back. If she needs to change, change. What matters is that she is whole. No medal is worth your soul. Hanna read the message 3 times. The tears came without warning. Kim sat beside her and hugged her sister. See? You are not alone. You never were. Hanna cried on the shoulder of her sister. But they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of relief, of recognition, of permission to exist. When she finally calmed down, she looked at Kim. I am going to talk to them. When? After the competition. First I will compete, do my part, and then I am going to tell them that it is over. Kim held the face of her sister. Are you sure? I am sure. And Daniel? Hanna smiled. A true smile. He will be there. The day of the final dawned clear and freezing, with a blue sky so intense it looked painted. Hanna woke up before the sun, as always, but this time she did not feel the weight in her chest. She felt the decision. At breakfast, Ryan was at a table with Virginia, the two of them talking in low tones. When Hanna passed by, he looked up, and there was something in his gaze that she did not recognize. It was not anger. Was it alarm? Virginia called out. Sit down. We need to align the final details. Hanna sat, but she did not touch the food. She only listened. You will go in with the full choreography. Ryan, the knee must hold up. Hanna, you cover any mistake. No faltering. Ryan said nothing. He only looked at Hanna with a strange expression, as if he were trying to decipher something. Understood? Virginia asked. Understood, Hanna replied. She stood up and left without waiting for a response. In the hallway, Daniel was leaning against the wall, a cup of coffee in his hand. Ready? Ready. It does not matter what the result is, okay? I know. You have already won. She frowned. What do you mean? He stepped closer and touched her face with his free hand. You remembered who you are. That is bigger than any medal. Hanna closed her eyes for a second, feeling the warmth of his hand. Will we celebrate afterward? She asked. Afterward we live. She laughed, and it was a free, genuine laugh. It is a deal. He kissed her forehead and walked away, leaving the warmth of the gesture imprinted on her skin. Hanna took a deep breath and headed to the arena. The ice was waiting for her, but this time she would not enter it to be a function. She would enter it to be whole. The morning of the finals began with the kind of cold that seeps into your bones and never leaves. Hanna woke up early as always, but this time it was not anxiety that pulled her from bed. It was a different sensation, a strange clarity, as if her body already knew this day would be a turning point before her mind could even process it. She showered slowly, letting the hot water fall over her back, over her aching shoulders, and over the legs that carried the weight of months of silence. When she stepped out, she wrapped herself in a towel and stood still in front of the mirror, looking at her own reflection. Her eyes were different. They were steadier, more present. Today, she said aloud, today it ends. In the cafeteria, the atmosphere was as thick as concrete. Ryan was sitting at a table with a large cup of black coffee in front of him, his eyes bloodshot, his hand trembling slightly as he lifted the cup. The scent reached Hanna even before she approached. Stale alcohol, sweat, and cheap cigarettes. He was no longer even trying to hide it. Virginia was by his side, speaking softly to him, her face tight with an expression Hanna knew well. It was the look of someone calculating damages, adjusting strategies, and turning a problem into a solution. When Hanna sat at the neighboring table, Virginia looked up. Today you enter in third position. The Russian pair is flawless, and the Canadians are as well. You need technical perfection and stage presence. Ryan did not respond. He only looked at Hanna with a mixture of resentment and something that looked like fear. You will cover for me, he said, his voice hoarse. If I make a mistake, you cover it. Hanna held his gaze. I am going to do my job. Your job is to protect me. My job is to skate. The answer came dryly, and Ryan seemed to feel the blow. He straightened his posture and narrowed his eyes. You have been different ever since you started going out with him. That is none of your business. It is my business when it affects training. Virginia interrupted before the argument could progress. Enough. Both of you will go in there and deliver. Afterward, you can resolve whatever you wish. Now focus. Hanna stood up without finishing her coffee. Her stomach was knotted anyway. The warm-up was tense. The main arena was already full. The audience was gradually filling the stands. Flags were being unfurled, and cameras were positioned at strategic angles. The ice shimmered under the bright lights, smooth as glass, waiting to be scarred. Hanna put on her skates on the bench reserved for the American team nearby. Ryan stretched with abrupt, impatient movements, his knee still wrapped in an elastic bandage. Daniel was on the other side of the rink near the entrance for individual athletes. When their eyes met, he raised his hand in a gesture of greeting, intended only for her. She responded with a discreet nod, but it was enough for Ryan to notice. Lovely, he murmured sarcastically. A little romance on the day of the finals. That will help you a lot. Hanna ignored him. She tied her skates, tested the blade on the floor, and stood up. Let us warm up, she said, and stepped onto the ice without waiting. The first few minutes were for adaptation. Smooth glides, wide curves, feeling the response of the surface. Competition ice was different from practice ice. It was faster, more responsive, with less forgiveness for errors. Ryan followed behind with stiff movements, lacking fluidity. He attempted a simple spin and came out crooked, his left leg shaking upon landing. Damn it, he spat quietly. Hanna approached him. Are you all right? Do not pretend that you care. I am not pretending. He stopped, turned his face toward her, and for the first time that morning, Hanna saw something beyond anger in his eyes. She saw fear. Fear of failing, fear of losing, fear that everything he had built might crumble. I need you today, he said, and there was something raw in the way the words came out without his usual armor. If I fall, the fault will be mine, but the fall will be ours. Hanna maintained eye contact. I know. Then stay close. Do not try anything new. I always stay close. He seemed to want to say something more but gave up. He simply nodded and returned to his exercises. The full warm-up session that was supposed to last 20 minutes lasted only 12. It was during a simple lift, one of those they had repeated for months without error, that everything went wrong. Ryan entered the movement with the wrong momentum, and his knee bent at the incorrect angle. Hanna felt the mistake in the air and tried to compensate, but his center was already lost. She came down ahead of time, avoiding the worst, but the impact made them both stumble. What the hell was that? Ryan exploded, his voice echoing through the arena. Hanna moved away, her arms spread wide to maintain her balance. You entered crooked. I did not enter crooked. You went off axis. Ryan, I felt your knee give way before the move. He took a step forward, his face contorted. Do not give me that. You want me to fall, is that it? You want me to fail so you can run off with your little Brazilian? Hanna felt her blood boil. This has nothing to do with him. It has everything to do with him. Ever since he showed up, you have changed. You are distracted, you are weak, you are thinking with your heart, instead of thinking with your head. The word cut through the air like a razor. Hanna stood frozen, staring fixedly at Ryan, her entire body vibrating with a mixture of shock and rage. Repeat that? She asked, her voice low and dangerous. Ryan laughed, an ugly, humorless laugh. You heard me. You are only here because we picked you up at that lake, because my mother gave you a chance, because I carry you on my back. Without us, you are nothing. Before Hanna could respond, a hand gripped Ryan by the shoulder and spun him around with force. Daniel. His face was calm, but his eyes burned with an intensity Hanna had never seen before. Repeat what you said. Ryan tried to pull away, but Daniel's grip was firm. Get your hand off me. Repeat it. In front of everyone, say what you called her again. Virginia appeared out of nowhere, trying to intervene. This is not the place. You stay quiet. Daniel cut her off, without shifting his gaze from Ryan. I have seen enough. Everyone has seen enough. Other athletes began to stop, watching the scene. Coaches approached, as did security guards. A murmur took over the arena. You think you can come here and… Ryan began. I think, Daniel interrupted, his voice low but cutting, that you are a coward. You drink until you lose control. You blame your partner for your own mistakes, and you still have the nerve to disrespect her in front of everyone. That is not being a man. That is being human garbage. Ryan tried to lunge forward, but his knee failed him. He stumbled, grabbing onto the edge of the rink. You know nothing. I know that she saved your skin in every competition. I know that you got this far on her back. And I know that today she is going to step onto that ice and do her best, with or without you. Hanna looked at Daniel as if she were seeing him for the first time. His body vibrated with controlled tension. His fists were clenched, but his posture was steady. He was not there to fight. He was there to protect her. "Come," Daniel said, extending his hand to Hanna. "Come with me." She looked at his hand, then at Ryan, then at Virginia, who watched everything with a pale face and pressed lips. Hanna took a deep breath, and then she made the choice. She placed her hand in Daniel's and left the ice. There was a deafening silence. In the locker room, Hanna sat on the bench and stared at her own hands. They were shaking, but not from the cold. Daniel stood by the door, giving her space but remaining present. "Are you all right?" he asked softly. She laughed, a hollow laugh. "I do not know. You might not be. It makes sense." She raised her eyes to him. "What you did back there, no one has ever done that for me. I did the bare minimum." "No, it was not the minimum, it was brave." Daniel approached slowly and sat beside her on the bench. "I could not hear that and stand still. Not with you." "I am going to compete," Hanna said finally. "I am going to go out on that ice and give the best performance of my life. Alone. Alone. The Federation allows last-minute substitutions in case of a proven injury. His knee is blown out. Everyone saw it." Daniel nodded slowly. "And afterward? Afterward I will speak. I will announce that I will never skate with him again. And Virginia? Virginia will answer for the abuse. Kim already has everything documented. The marks, the recordings, the messages." Daniel remained silent for a moment, processing it all. "You thought of everything. I had help from my sister." She touched his face with a trembling hand. "Thank you for seeing me, for defending me, and for reminding me that I exist." He covered her hand with his own. "You always existed. You just needed permission to believe it." She leaned in and kissed him with intensity, with urgency, like someone wanting to engrave that moment onto her skin. His lips responded with the same hunger, his hands moving up to her face, holding her as if she were something precious. When they pulled apart, they were breathless. "We will continue this later," she said, a smile on her lips. "Afterward, we have our entire lives." The finals began with the Russian pair. They were flawless. Surgical technique, perfect lifts, high-level artistic expression. The audience gave them a standing ovation. The Canadians came next, bolder, more emotional, drawing gasps from the crowd. And then, it was their turn. The announcer called the name of the American pair, but when Hanna stepped onto the ice, she was alone. A murmur took over the arena. Virginia, at the edge, gestured furiously to the organizers. Ryan was sitting on a bench, his face pale and his knee immobilized. The competition doctors were evaluating him, shaking their heads. Hanna glided to the center of the rink and waited. The head judge approached. "Where is your partner?" "Injured," Hanna replied, clear and firm. "I request authorization to skate in the individual category, as per Regulation 14.3, which allows for substitution in the event of a medical confirmation of the primary partner's impairment." The judge looked toward the table, where other officials were checking the regulations. "Has the injury been verified?" "Yes, just now, by the competition doctors." The judge hesitated, then nodded. "Wait." Minutes that felt like hours passed. The audience whispered and the cameras focused on Hanna, who maintained an upright posture in the center of the O.S. Finally, the judge returned. "Authorized. You have 15 minutes to readjust your choreography." Hanna took a deep breath. "I do not need it. I will skate freestyle." Another murmur. To skate freestyle in an Olympic final was madness. It was technical suicide, but Hanna knew what she was doing. The music began. She closed her eyes for a second, just one, and remembered the lake, the ice cracking under her feet, the wind on her face, the freedom. Then she opened her eyes and skated. It was not a common performance, it was a declaration. Every movement told a story. The years of silence, the grips on her wrist, the cutting words, the exhaustive training sessions, the fear, the doubt, the hope. All of it was there in the spins, the jumps, the curves. The audience felt it. The judges felt it. Even the other athletes, standing at the edge, felt it. When she executed the final jump, a perfect triple axel, landing with the lightness of someone who always knew how to fly, the arena exploded. Hanna finished in the center of the rink, her arms wide open, her chest heaving, her eyes shining. The applause was deafening. She looked toward the stands and saw an emotional Kim. She saw Daniel standing, applauding with a massive smile on his face. And she saw Virginia motionless, her face as pale as the ice. The scores came out 20 minutes later. Hanna won the gold. When the result was announced, she could not contain her tears. She climbed the podium, alone, received the medal on her chest, and heard the American anthem playing for her. But when she stepped down, she did not go to hug Virginia. She did not go to hug anyone from the team. She went straight to the interviewer's microphone. "I have an announcement to make." Silence took over the arena. This was my last performance as part of Virginia Whitmore's team, and my last as the partner of Ryan Whitmore. Virginia tried to approach, but security guards stopped her. For months, Hanna continued, her voice steady. I was subjected to physical and psychological abuse. My partner, Ryan Whitmore, attended practices and competitions under the influence of alcohol. My coach, Virginia Whitmore, not only allowed but encouraged this behavior, blaming me for his mistakes. The audience held its breath. I have evidence and witnesses, and today, before everyone, I am speaking out, not for revenge, but so that no other athlete has to go through what I went through to get where I am. She took the medal from around her neck for a second, looked at it, then put it back on. This gold is not theirs. It is mine, and it belongs to everyone who helped me remember who I am. She walked off the stage without looking back. The punishment came quickly. The International Federation opened an investigation that same night. Kim's evidence, the testimonies of other athletes, and the security camera footage from the arena were all analyzed. Ryan was caught in the anti-doping test, alcohol at levels incompatible with Olympic participation. The Federation released an official statement the following morning: immediate disqualification, an 8-year suspension, and a ban from participating in any international competition. Virginia lost her accreditation as a coach. The American Federation opened an ethical proceeding that could revoke her license permanently. The name Whitmore, which was once synonymous with excellence in skating, became a headline. Scandal. Hanna did not celebrate the punishment. She simply watched from afar, sitting on a park bench near the hotel with the gold medal in her coat pocket. Daniel was by her side. "You did it," he said. "Not yet. What else is missing?" She turned her face toward him. "Living for real, without fear, without pressure. Just being me." He smiled. "That sounds like a good plan. Do you want to be a part of it?" He took a second to respond, due to the intensity of that moment. "I do. Ever since I saw you on the ice for the first time, that is all I have wanted." She leaned over and rested her head on his shoulder. "And now?" she asked. "Now, we breathe. Later we figure out the rest." The wind blew, bringing the scent of snow and coffee from a nearby cafe. The sky was clear, blue, and infinite. Hanna closed her eyes and felt it. For the first time in a long time, there was no fear, only peace, and the certainty that the best was yet to come. The snow fell lightly over the city of Michigan when the airplane of Daniel touched the ground. 6 months. 6 months since that night in the arena, since the announcement, since the punishments, since the kiss that changed their lives. 6 months of late-night calls, voice messages before practices, photos of quick meals sent like someone saying, "I am thinking of you." 6 months separated by an ocean and a relentless routine. But now he was there. The training center was located on the outskirts of the city, a modern building of glass and steel surrounded by pine trees covered in snow. Daniel stopped outside for a moment, observing the silhouettes moving behind the glass walls. They were skaters, like him, like her. He took a deep breath and entered. The smell of clean ice and fresh coffee took over his senses. He followed the signs to the main rink, his heart beating at a rhythm that had nothing to do with physical exercise. And then he saw her. Hanna was in the center of the ice, alone, drawing perfect circles with her blades. Her posture was different from what he had seen in the competition. Looser, lighter, more herself. Her hair was tied in a simple bun, a stray strand falling over her face, her body moving with the naturalness of someone who has finally found their own rhythm. Daniel leaned against the edge and stood watching. She executed a triple spin, landed clean, and only then realized she was no longer alone. When her eyes met his, the smile that spread across her face lit up more than all the lights in the arena. "Daniel?" He smiled back. Who else would it be? She crossed the ice at a speed that seemed like flight, jumped over the edge, and threw herself into his arms. The hug was long, tight, full of everything the calls could not transmit. Her scent, the warmth of her body, the way her hands held his back as if he could disappear. "You are here," she murmured against his shoulder. "I am. I do not believe it." "Believe it?" She pulled away just enough to look at his face. "Why did you not let me know? I wanted to make it a surprise." "You succeeded." He laughed, low. "You look different. Better or worse? More like you." She blushed, a soft red rising up her cheeks. "Take off those skates and show me this city." The house of Hanna was small but perfect. 2 blocks from the training center, light walls, large windows that let the morning light in, and a bookshelf full of books she had been accumulating over the last few months. In the kitchen, jars of cookies on the table, fruit in the bowl, a coffee machine that Kim had bought as a gift. Daniel sat on the sofa while she prepared something to drink, observing the details of the space that was hers. Photos on the wall, her mother, Kim, some new friends she had made at the training center. No trace of Virginia, no trace of Ryan. "Orange juice or iced tea?" she asked from the kitchen. "Both?" She appeared at the door with 2 glasses, one in each hand, and smiled. "Good choice." They sat on the sofa, their bodies close but still with that timid space of those who had not seen each other in months. Their knees almost touched. "Tell me everything," she requested. "How is the training? The ranking? Your mother?" He told her about the competitions in Europe, his mother who now sent enormous audio messages on WhatsApp, his father who had finally taken a vacation after years. He told her of the nights when he would call her and stay in silence just listening to her voice, of the mornings when he woke up wondering if she had already practiced. She listened with attention, as if every word were important. "And you?" he asked when he finished. "How is it to train without fear?" She thought before answering. "Strange at first. The new coach, Elena, is a former Olympic champion," she corrects, "but she does not humiliate. She demands, but she does not destroy. In the first month, I expected the blow at so. Every mistake. It took time for me to understand that it was not coming. And now I wake up and I want to go to practice. Do you have any idea what that is like? To wake up and want to go to practice?" He smiled. "I do. When I started with my current coach, I felt the same thing. It is good, right? It is wonderful." They stayed in silence for an instant, but it was a comfortable silence, the kind that does not need to be filled. "Will you show me the bedroom?" he asked, low. "Duh," raised her eyebrow with a spark in her eyes. "Bold. I want to see where you sleep, where you think, where you dream." She stood up, extended her hand. "Come." The room was simple, but full of her. The bed with light sheets, a blanket thrown at the foot, a pile of books on the nightstand. On the wall, photos. Kim, her mother, and one that Daniel did not know. Him and her on the night of the competition, hugging after the announcement. Someone had captured the moment. "When was this taken?" he asked, touching the frame. It was Kim who took it. She always takes photos. She said this moment needed to be kept. He turned to her. She was right. They stood still in the middle of the room, the distance between them diminishing like ice melting in the sun. "Daniel," she said, her voice lower. Why did you come?" "Because I could not stand being away anymore." "Only that?" He took a step forward. "No. Because I look at you and I see everything I want. Because you made me remember that. Life can be more than training, more than competition, more than fear. Another step. Because I love you." The word hung suspended in the air, light and heavy at the same time. Hanna felt her heart race. "You love me. I love you. Since the coffee shop. Since the lake. Since you looked at me that way on the subway and I knew I would not be able to look at anyone else." "I do too," she said. "I love you too." He did not wait any longer. He closed the distance and kissed her. This time it was not the timid kiss of the beginning, nor the urgent kiss of the arena. It was a kiss of someone who has time, of someone who wants to explore, of someone who can finally stop running. His lips moved slowly over hers, like someone learning a new path. His hand rose to her face, his fingers sinking into her loose hair, the other wrapping around her waist and pulling her close. She responded with the same calm intensity, moving her hands up his chest, feeling the accelerated heart under the skin. "I am nervous," she whispered between kisses. "Me too, it is good. Very much." He slid his lips to the corner of her mouth, to her jaw, to her neck. She tilted her head, offering more, her eyes closed, her entire body vibrating with every touch. "Daniel? Stay. I will stay." She pulled him to the bed. What came after was slow, careful, full of discoveries. His hands traveling over her body like someone studying a new choreography, learning every curve, every response. Hers. Explored his back, his shoulders, his face, as if she needed to engrave every detail in her memory. Their bodies met in a rhythm that did not need haste. There was time. There was the whole night. There was the whole life, if they wanted. When they finished, they lay on their sides, face to face, their breathing still irregular, the sheets wrapped around their bodies. "I did not know it could be like this," she said. "Like what?" "So, whole." He touched her face with the tip of his fingers. "Now you know." She smiled, a wet, tired, happy smile. "Will you stay a little longer?" "I will stay all night. And tomorrow?" "Tomorrow too." "And after?" He pulled her close, resting his chin on the top of her head. "Afterwards, we find out together." The following months were of slow construction. Daniel returned to Europe to close commitments, but the nightly calls became longer video calls. He met the mother of Hanna via video, and she approved with a smile. Hanna met his parents, who promised to visit as soon as they could. Life, for the first time, tasted like normalcy. The first solo competition of Hanna happened in May. The gymnasium was full, but different from the last time. There was no fear. There was only desire. Daniel arrived early, sat in the stands near her family, and waited. When Hanna entered the ice, silence took over the place. She wore a light blue dress, simple, without exaggerated sparkles. Her hair was tied to the side. Her face was calm. The music began. It was a piece she had chosen herself, something soft at the beginning, then intense, then lyrical. She skated like someone telling her own story. The first steps, timid, like at the lake. Then the spins, firm, like in the practices with Virginia. Then the jumps, free, like in the Olympic final. The audience felt every note, every movement, every breath. When she finished, in the center of the rink, her arms open, her chest heaving, the arena erupted. Hanna looked at the stands and found Daniel. He was standing, applauding with his eyes shining. She smiled. After the award ceremony, another gold, another anthem, another medal. He waited for her in the empty corridors. She appeared with her coat open, the medal still around her neck, her face flushed with emotion. "Did you see?" she asked. "I saw everything." "And so?" He approached, held the medal in his hands, feeling the weight of it. "It is beautiful. Like you." She laughed, a free, happy laugh. "All right. Romantic. I have something to tell you." She tilted her head, curious. "Tell me." He took a deep breath. "I am going to transfer to the United States for good. I have already settled it with the coach, with the federation. Everything." Her face changed in a mixture of surprise and joy. "Seriously? Seriously? But why?" He held her face in his hands. "Because I do not want to live away from you anymore. Because I want to wake up by your side every day. Because I want to train in the same country, compete in the same circuit, and one day, who knows, skate with you. Skate with me. As a couple, a pair, you and me." She remained still, processing. "Are you asking for us to become skating partners?" "I am asking for us to become everything. Partners, lovers, a team, a family, everything." Her eyes filled with tears. "Daniel, you do not have to answer right now. I just needed you to know." She threw her arms around his neck and kissed him with all the intensity she possessed. "That is a yes," she said between kisses. "What?" "Yes. Yes to everything." He laughed against her lips. "I am glad." She laughed too, and they stayed there, embracing in the empty corridor, the distant noise of the arena still echoing, the gold medal pressed between the two of them. The next day, Hanna woke up early. Daniel was still sleeping with his arm draped over her, his breathing calm. She spent a few minutes watching his face as the morning light entered through the cracks in the curtain, painting bright stripes across his body. Slowly, so as not to wake him, she got up. She put on a coat over her sleepwear, stepped into her boots, and went out. The lake was only a few blocks from her house. She had discovered it by chance during one of her first days, and since then, she went there whenever she needed to think. It was not the same as the one from her childhood, but it felt like it. The dark water, the edges beginning to freeze, the silence. She stood still on the shore, with her hands in her pockets and her breath forming clouds in the cold air. I knew I would find you here. His voice came from behind, soft. She turned. Daniel was there, with a cup of cappuccino in each hand. Are you awake? You disappeared. I did not disappear, I just came here. He approached and handed her a cup. It is your place, right? Yes, it is one of my places. He looked at the lake, at the thin ice on the edges, at the reflection of the sky and the water. It is beautiful. It is on a lake like this where everything began. What? The desire to skate, the freedom, me. He remained silent, letting her continue. When Virginia saw me skating on a lake, I thought it was the beginning of something great. And it was, just not in the way I imagined. And now when I come to this lake, I remember that the ice does not belong to them. It never did. It is mine. Mine, and whoever I choose to share it with. He turned his face to her. Can you share it with me? She smiled. I am already sharing it. They stayed there side by side, watching the sun rise slowly behind the trees. Are we training today? She asked. We are. Together? Together. She finished her cappuccino, threw the cup into the nearest trash can, and extended her hand. Then come. He held her hand, intertwined his fingers, and they walked back. Hours later, the training rink was empty, just for the two of them. Hanna put on her skates, entered the ice, and began to draw wide circles, loosening her body. Daniel entered next, with more controlled, more precise movements, but with the same lightness. She approached him. Show me what you know. Do I have to show you? I want to see. He smiled, gained speed, and executed a sequence of flawless spins, finishing with a triple jump landed to perfection. Hanna applauded. Not bad, Brazilian. Did you like it? I can like it even more. She approached, extending her hand. Come here. He held her hand, and she pulled him. Close. Have you ever skated as a pair? A little. Then learn. She placed his hand on her waist, held his free hand, and began to glide. In the beginning, it was strange, their bodies still learning how to adjust. But after a few laps, something changed. Their movements began to synchronize, their breathing to align, their bodies to trust. She let go of his hand, spun under his arm, and came back. He held her, pulled her, and lifted her in a simple but perfect movement. When she came down, their eyes met. We can do this, she said. We can do everything. They continued skating until the end of the afternoon, until the light changed and the ice began to reflect the yellow of the dusk. They stopped in the center of the rink, still holding hands, their breathing heavy but their bodies light. The silence around them was the kind that does not pressure, but only welcomes. The blades of the skates scratched one last arc before they both stopped completely, face to face. The world reduced to that circle of ice illuminated by the setting sun. And now? She asked. He looked at the future in her eyes, and he saw everything he ever wanted. Not medals, not trophies, not spotlights. He saw peace. He saw home. He saw the rest of his entire life reflected in that blue that he knew better than any choreography. Now we live, without haste, without fear, without prison. She squeezed his hand, intertwining their fingers, the contact warm even under the cold of the rink. And competition? It comes. But it is not everything anymore. What is everything? He pulled her close, touching his forehead to hers, their eyes so close they seemed as one. Her breath mixed with his, the sweet scent of sweat and ice and something more. Something intimate that he had learned to recognize as her scent, as home. This, you, us. She closed her eyes, a small smile trembling on her lips. Perfect. Almost. She opened her eyes, confused. Almost? One thing is missing. Before she could ask what, he slowly released one of her hands with care, like someone handling something precious. The movement made her heart race even before she understood what was happening. He stepped back a few inches, just enough so that he could see her entire face, under the golden light of the sunset, outlining every feature, every stray strand of hair, every particle of frozen dust hovering in the air between them. Hanna. Her name in his mouth sounded different, deeper, more heavy with meaning. I spent my whole life searching for something I did not even know what it was. I trained, I competed, I won, and yet I still woke up with a void that had no name. I thought it was about getting there, about the podium, about proving something to someone. She held her breath, until one day in a random arena on the other side of the world, I saw a girl skating as if the ice belonged to her, as if nothing else mattered. And in that moment, I did not see an athlete. I saw the answer to a question I did not even know I had asked. Her eyes began to shine. You did not just save yourself in that competition. You saved me. You showed me that there is life after fear, that there is love after silence, that there is a future where we wake up and choose to stay every single day, not out of obligation, but because we cannot imagine any other possibility. He knelt on the ice. Hanna put her hands to her mouth. Daniel, I do not have a ring, right? Now, I did not plan this. I did not rehearse. I only know that since you entered my life, everything makes sense. The practices, the pain, the victories, the defeats. Everything. Because at the end of the day, it is you I want to find. It is you I want to see smile. It is with you I want to grow old. He held her hand with both of his, warming her cold fingers. So I am going to ask in the simplest way there is, because with you there is no need for games. He took a deep breath. Hanna, will you marry me? And then she smiled, a bright, happy smile that echoed in the empty rink like music. You are unbelievable, she said with a shaky smile. Unbelievable, and completely mine. Is that a yes? That is a yes. Of course it is a yes. He stood up in a quick motion and pulled her into a hug that lifted her from the ice, spinning their bodies slowly, their laughter mixing, the tears freezing on their cheeks before they could fall. When he set her back on the ground, their eyes met again. Now everything was different. Now there was a commitment sealed there, in the center of the rink, under the golden light of the dusk. The kiss is missing, she whispered. The kiss was long, slow, deep, the kind of kiss that has no rush because it has an entire lifetime ahead. His hands held her face as if she were made of glass and diamond at the same time. She tangled her hands in his hair, pulling, holding, not letting go. When they separated, they were breathless but smiling. You are going to have to give me a ring later, she said, teasing. I will give you the world. The world is too much. Then just whatever fits on the rink. She looked around, at the ice, at the empty stands, at the lights that were starting to turn on automatically with the falling of the night. A whole life fits here. It does. He held her hand again, intertwining their fingers in a grip that promised never to let go. Shall we go for one more lap? She asked. One more. 1,000. More. All of them. She smiled, rested her face on his shoulder for a second, feeling the heat of his body, the scent, the presence. Then she let go of his hand, gained momentum, and glided across the ice in a wide curve, with her arms open and her body free. He watched for an instant, with his heart so full it felt like it was going to explode, and then he went after her. They skated together until night fell completely, until the stars appeared in the frozen sky, until the rink janitor arrived and stood watching the two of them, with a discreet smile on his face without the courage to interrupt. When they finally stopped, exhausted, happy, they lay in the center of the ice side by side, looking at the high ceiling that seemed infinite. Do you think it will work out? She asked. It already has. What do you mean? He turned his head to look at her. It worked out the moment you said yes. She turned too, their faces close, their breathing creating clouds in the cold air. I love you, she said. I love you more. Impossible. Prove it? She laughed, a low, intimate laugh. Later. Right now, just stay here with me. I will stay for a lifetime. They stayed there, lying on the ice, holding hands, the silence full of everything that did not need to be said. The ice remained there, silent, waiting, but they were no longer bound to it. They were together, free, committed to tomorrow, and the future, finally, belonged only to them. 4 years passed like a perfect spin, too fast for those who lived every second, too intense to leave no mark. The Olympic arena was crowded that night. Flags waved, flashes streaked through the air, and expectation vibrated in the stands. But in the center of the ice, there existed only two hearts that already knew how to dance to the same rhythm. Hanna and Daniel glided side by side. It was not just technique, it was intimacy. 4 years training together, 4 years sharing silence before competitions, 4 years learning that love also demands repetition, adjustment, and balance, just like any difficult jump. She wore light green, airy, almost ethereal. The fabric responded to her movement as if it had been made for that music. He was in black, simple, but there was something different about him that night, an almost reverent attention, as if he knew he was not stepping onto the stage merely as an athlete. The music began. The spins came clean. The transitions, smooth. When he lifted her, the world seemed to hold its breath. Hanna floated above him with absolute confidence, not just in the movement, but in the hands that supported her. When she came down, she landed slowly and placed her hand on her stomach. It was a small gesture, almost invisible, but Daniel saw it. It was not immediate. First came the recognition, then a pause within him, as if time had opened a rift. He did not smile right away. His eyes filled, not with surprise, but with understanding. He covered her hand with his own. The audience applauded, thinking it was part of the choreography. For him, the ice ceased to exist in that second. He did not hear the music for a few moments. He only heard his own heart beating too loudly inside his chest. A memory flashed through his mind. The marriage proposal on the ice rink years ago. The fear of losing her to an injury. The early mornings of empty ice. The promises whispered in the dark. And now there was something growing there. Something that was theirs. He finished the performance in the perfect automatic state of someone who had trained his whole life. But when they stopped face to face, breathless, he held her face with both hands as if he needed to confirm that this was real. The kiss was not a spectacle. It was a sanctuary. The audience exploded in applause. In the empty corridors, away from the cameras, Hanna laughed softly, her hand still over her belly. I think she liked it. He ran his hand through his hair, nervous in a way he never was before an Olympic final. Or him. She smiled. It does not matter, as long as the baby is healthy. Daniel lowered himself slowly, kneeling before her in an instinctive gesture. He leaned his forehead against her stomach for a second and released a breath he did not even know he was holding. When he spoke, his voice came out different, less firm, more real. I have been afraid of falling on the ice in front of the whole world, but this, he touched her stomach with care, almost with reverence. This is the highest jump of my life. She slid her fingers across his face. Are you afraid? He laughed, but his eyes were shining. I am. And I have never wanted something so much at the same time. He stood up, hugged Hanna tightly, as if he were protecting not only her, but the entire future that was beginning right there. 4 years ago I asked you to marry me, he said, looking back at the empty rink. I thought that was the most courageous moment of my life. He turned his eyes back to her. I was wrong. She raised an eyebrow. Wrong. This right here is real courage. Building someone together. Teaching someone how to fall and how to get back up, loving without knowing what tomorrow will be like. She pulled his face close. Ready? He leaned his forehead against hers, smiling in that way that only appears when the heart has already decided. I have no idea what I am doing, he confessed with a light laugh. But if it is with you, I will learn. They left the arena holding hands. The cold night enveloped them, but Daniel felt a strange warmth in his chest. Not from competition, not from achievement. It was permanence. The ice would continue. The medals would come and go. But for the first time in his life, he was not thinking about the next performance. He was thinking about the first cry. And for the first time, he did not want to fly. He wanted to stay.